Hello, and welcome to Aston's Vintage Technology Workshop. On the bench today is a little orange pocket radio, the sort of thing you would find on the counter of a hardware store or at the checkout in a supermarket. This one is totally deaf, so let's see if I can get anything out of it. Okay, so the volume control is crackly. Let's try buzzing out some of the output stages. So that proves that the amp stage is working. There's literally nothing being picked up at all across the entire tuning range. Time to take the board out and see if the mixer oscillator is working. Well, that's not right. The frequency should change when I move the tuning capacitor. Let's see if I can take the tuning dial off. Yes, after all this time, the glue has just turned to powder. I'm going to start by taking out the mixer converter transistor and pop it on the tester to see if it's working properly. The reason I'm using a solder sucker and not the desoldering gun is that I can limit the temperature going onto the board using a smaller tip on the soldering iron and limit the heating time so as not to damage the tracks. I don't think that's quite right. I'm sure it's not supposed to be a common cathode Zener diode. While I'm desoldering, I might as well change the three capacitors which by now are at least 40 years old. All these little radios seem to conform to the same basic design, though all of the three I have so far, one is a positive ground design with PNP transistors, one is a negative ground with NPN transistors, and the third one is a totally different design with both. They were everywhere in the 70s and 80s, and all of a sudden they disappeared. It's odd, really. I had one of the black ones and really wanted a green one to go with it, but by the time I'd saved up my pocket money, all of the good colours had gone. All that was left was pink and brown. Bleh. They are, well, basic. They are built to a cost, a very low cost, and yet, as a small child, to have your own pocket radio was just the greatest thing in the world. So I've started to collect them in all of their various colours. I've trimmed the legs of the capacitors so that they can be bent over and soldered as they were when they were first manufactured, to hopefully keep things looking like they would have done when they came out of the factory. So you don't have to watch me solder every single capacitor in. I think a little speeding up is in order. If only I could desolder capacitors and replace them at this speed, I'd be a happy man. I didn't think the speaker wires would have survived all that bending, and one didn't. Time to put the new transistor in. The only PNP transistor I could find in my pot of transistors with enough frequency range was a BC178, which goes up to 100 MHz, which is probably overkill. Because the BC178 has a metal can, I'm going to insulate it against the mixer coil with some Kapton tape. Okay, I need to clean up the switch. But we have success. It now works.
Okay. But that is true.
That is true.
I mean, what an accolade.
More of a lemonade, really. Because I said it because I got the answer wrong.
Because the can of the BC178 is connected to the emitter, I can test if the mixer circuit is now working properly from the components side. As you can see, the frequency changes with the tuning capacitor now. Just in case you wondered, this is the mixer. This is the first IF, and this is the second IF. This is the mixer converter trimmer, and this is the aerial trimmer. The instructions say that the intermediate frequency should be 465 kHz. I've tried tuning the radio to this, and it's almost completely deaf. So I tried it at the usual 455 kHz, and that seemed to be pretty much spot on. So I've adjusted the mixer converter coil and mixer converter trimmer to get the best reception and vaguely correct positioning of the few channels still broadcasting. It's just a matter of peaking the coils for 455 kHz and final balancing of the reception across the band via the aerial trimmer. The mixer trimmer and the aerial trimmer all affect each other on these radios in one way or another, so it's a case of suck it and see up and down the band until you strike a fair balance. Final peak at the bottom end of the 450 kHz with the aerial trimmer, and it's done.
Stop the spread of coronavirus. So let's get tested. Get one.
So to speak, was to go out just for a drive to do coffee, not getting out of the car, not doing any.
Occasionally 5 laser in southeast. Showers, thundery laser, good, occasionally moderate. This is Smooth Radio from Global. Pinch Punch, first of the month. Good afternoon, I'm Jenny here on Smooth this Saturday, just after midday. It's August the 1st.
Thank you for watching.